So I'm going to go ahead and get my thread started. Like normal, I am using a Vivus 6/0, and a lot of people would tie this pattern with white thread, assuming that you want to have white be the only color that you would see through any of your bucktail that you're choosing. But I actually really like using like colors like hot orange and this really fluorescent yellow. I think they're a really nice touch, and you'll see once we finish the bug, it just gives it a really nice little cap at the front. And also, it kind of functions as a hotspot through the middle of the fly as well, that you'll see just a little glimmer of color through it, and I don't think that hurts. So, next thing I'm going to do is grab a decent hunk of flash, probably about, I'd say, between 12 and 18 fibers, 12 and 20 fibers, and we're going to be doubling that over as well. So we'll cut that, and I'm just going to go ahead and measure out the middle roughly, advance my thread so it's in line with the point, tie that in the middle once, twice, 3 times, and then at this point I'm actually just going to grab everything and pull back with one turn. That's going to situate it. Roll it around in my fingers a little bit, make sure that it's nice and tight, and then I'll start wrapping back right to that point where the hook starts to bend. And you'll notice that if I drop down my thread right there, it's right at the start of the barb, and that'll be a nice little indicator that you're at the right spot. And that flash coming off the back is done. Next, we are going to tie in our hackle. So, I really like these whiting American saddles. They can be kind of difficult to find, but they're really worth the investment. If you're looking for a little bit cheaper option, you can go with strung Chinese saddles. Those are going to be in the 5 to 7 inch feather sections, but what's cool about these is that you get these nice, really long feathers as well as the shorter ones, and it allows you to pick and choose and make sure that you get exactly 2 feathers that are the same. And in the 3/0 case, we're actually using 4 feathers because there's 2 each side. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-select out 4 feathers, and then I'll get those on camera, and we'll start tying those in. Bear with me as I select these. It's really crucial that you get nice matched feathers in this pattern, or else it's really not going to look that great. I'm of the firm belief that good materials make flies look good. It's really hard to make bad materials look good on a fly, especially when it comes to hackle, and even more so when it comes to bucktail, which I'll talk about when we get to that step. But those are the 2 main materials that are in this fly, so you really want to make sure that you have nice quality materials. Alright, so I have 4 feathers that are all about that length. And if you look at this feather, you're going to notice that it has a front, which is going to be this nice shiny side, and then the back is going to be more matte. And the front, you'll notice that that feather actually curves down. You see that? So what we want to do with that is, if this feather is going on the near side, I'm going to place it so that that curve actually goes towards the camera. So if I tilt that on plane, you see how that curve is going away from the hook? That's going to make those fibers splay out and then pop down, pop down, pop down. And it's just going to give you a really nice kicking motion on that fly. So I'm going to go ahead and take 2 feathers that are exactly the same. For the right side, or the near side of the hook, camera side of the hook. And I'm going to line those up so that they're just a little bit shorter than my flash. And then I'll go ahead and I'll peel away all of that excess together, both of them together, so that I know that they're nice and consistent. And then I'll take those And I'm going to tie them right on top of the hook. Don't try and tie it on the side. This is a trick that I learned from Gunnar Bramar. Huge shout out to you, dude. What you're doing with fly tying is absolutely incredible. He's really, really phenomenal teacher. If you haven't checked him out, I've been able to learn a lot just from looking at some of his videos, and a couple of his techniques have definitely been adapted into this pattern. But what he has a video all about on basically feathers is that if you tie the stem on the top, it's going to situate and not flip over. It's going to actually run down the side of the fiber. Whereas if you go the other way with that and try and tie it on the side, those feathers are going to roll away from you. Do you want me to just put pause until this is done?
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, it's fine. The garbage man. Looks really good though.
And then we're going to do the same thing for the near side of the hook. So I'm going to go ahead and line up those feathers again. Remember that I want them to curve away, so I'm going to do the mat side towards me this time. And you want them to be lined up with that far side. So I'm going to pinch and then pull away all of that fine fluff that's unnecessary. And again, I'm just going to pinch with my left hand so that they're sitting right on top of that hook shank with one loose turn, two loose turns, and then I'll go ahead and cinch down. And that is going to make it so, actually that one rolled on me. So, much easier to just go back than it is to try and tweak them. I was involved in the classic salmon fly tying realm for a little while, and I heard somebody say at a show once that he wasn't a fly tyer, he was a feather fiddler. He wasn't a fly tyer, he was a feather fiddler, which I really believe. You're basically in fly tying, especially in that classic salmon stuff, just trying to get natural fibers that want to do what they want to do to get what you want them to do. So now that those are nice and splayed back, we're all good, and we can carry on to our next step. So I'll go in and I'll tidy up, make sure I have a nice, clean thread base. And I'm just going to advance about one eye length in front of that tie-in point. And this is where our first section of bucktail is going to go. So I'll grab my bucktail and I'm just going to start pulling little hanks of this. And you want to make sure that you are cutting as close to the skin as possible. You don't want to waste any of this stuff, so you work from front to back as you're cutting little sections. And I think about a pencil size diameter is how much you want to pull every time. And I'll try and do my best to show you that on the camera. But I'll go ahead and I'll peel out a little pencil-sized pull of bucktail. And then I'll go ahead and I'll start pulling out some of those short fibers just by pulling on the end while grabbing right up in the middle of that fiber. And now you'll see that I have a really nice, slim, but it's about a pencil size. You don't want to go too much, you don't want to go too little. If you're going to err on any side of it, I would go with too little as opposed to too much. But that's about the right consistency. If it looks like that, you're probably pretty solid. So I'm just going to take those points and recut them so they're nice and straight. And I'm just going to catch them right on top of the hook with one loose wrap, two loose wraps, three loose wraps. And that's going to be enough to hold it. And then I'm just going to push down while maintaining a little bit of tension with my left hand, and then start to pinch on the sides, and that's going to rotate and spin that fiber all around the hook. And then at this point, I'll just take my left hand, pull all the good stuff backwards, and pull all those butt ends forwards, and tidy up. So I'm just going to make sure all those butt ends are nice and tight. And you don't need to worry about them being like perfectly tied in. If you have a little bit of like goof going all over the place, you can either come in and trim it. I honestly don't even worry about it because it's just going to get covered up with the next section of bucktail anyways. So I wouldn't stress too much about it. So, and then now we see right here is where those butt action or the butt sections ended. So what I want to do is I'm going to advance my thread to that point, and that's going to be where my next section of bucktail is. And this is going to be where we tie one more section of reverse bucktail, and then we'll switch over to, this is going to be this next section of regular bucktail, and then moving forward we're going to actually switch over to reverse tying bucktail. So I'm going to go back to my bucktail and get another nice little pencil-sized pole of that. And I'm just going to do the same exact thing that I did the last time, just in that next spot on the hook. I'm going to take that, put it right on top of the hook. Once, twice, 3 times. Push down with your nail, pull, and allow that to spin and flare. You want it to go all the way around that hook or else it's not going to work as well. I'm just going to go in. Be very careful not to trim your thread while you're doing this process. It's definitely happened to me once before. Don't worry if it happens to you. I mean, just try and avoid it. You can always restart your thread if it happens. Not the end of the world. So I'm advanced to like right at that kind of middle point right now of what I have left. I have about 1/2 of an inch, so probably 1/4 of an inch up. We're going to go in and we're going to grab our second color of bucktail, which is going to be light blue. I like putting accent colors on these a lot. I just think they really, really make them pop. And this is where we're actually going to tie in the bucktail using a different method. What we're going to do is we're going to reverse tie it so that it actually gives us more flare and more body in the water. So I'm going to do the same thing I did last time and cut a pencil-sized pole of bucktail. But this one, rather than pointing it backwards, I'm actually going to point it forwards, and then using thread turns, we'll be able to push it back. So I'm going to cut this to length because I want it to be as close to that taper as possible. Just like that. Then I'm going to take that, put it right on top. Once, twice, 3 times. Same thing as the last time. You're just going to push right on the top and just kind of pinch and twist and allow that fiber to rotate all the way around that hook. And then make sure you get this nice and tight. I do about like 8 turns right here just to make sure that it's really well secured. And then I will be right back. I just need to go grab my pen tube. Pen tube, you might ask? What does he mean, pen tube? Well, there are a lot of fly tying supplies out there, and some of them are not specific to fly tying. If you take any pen and pull off the back, this is the most useful tool for spinning bucktail on the face of the planet because it actually allows you to press all these fibers back at the same time and it goes right over the tube. See that? So, super, super useful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that thread towards me, take that tool, preen everything back like so. Then I'm going to pull that thread underneath and advance it to right in front of that bucktail. So you're going to see that it's actually flaring all over the place right now, and that's a good thing. We're not actually tying onto these fibers, we're just building up what's called a thread dam in front of them. So the bigger the thread dam and the bigger the thread comb that I build there, the lower and lower and lower this angle is going to get. So you'll notice that right now it's sticking straight up, but as I start to build up my thread turns in front of that by wrapping backwards, forwards. Backwards, forwards. Backwards, forwards. And this is a lot of thread, but this is how it's done. It's going to slowly start to lower that angle of that bucktail and start to give us a really, really nice little taper. Super important that you keep your thread turns on this part all the way perfect around and don't angle them, or else it's going to affect the way that that pushes back. But right about there is pretty solid, honestly. Let me just make sure it's looking good from all angles. Oh yeah, we're solid. All right, so we're almost done. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna grab a 4.5-inch invader brush in white to finish this thing off, and I'm just gonna take a little bit of time to preen all of these fibers and make sure that they're gonna lay nice and pretty for me. So I'll grab that core, which is that wire core. These are the 4.5-inch, like I said, invader brush by Enrico Puglisi. I really like these ones for the 3/0 and the 4/0. Looks better wets. And then for any of the 1/0s, I really like that Foxy brush, which is a 3-inch brush. So I'm just going to take those fibers and pull them backwards. And what's cool about this is it has a little bit of synthetic, a little bit of natural. You get a nice amount of flash, but it also sheds water really well. So the big thing with this pattern is that it's going to be nice and easy to cast into the wind, which we all know in salt water is a consistent battle that we have to face. But hey, it's worth it. Big fish, big wind. So have patterns that you can throw in the wind. So every single turn, I'm just taking that fiber and I'm preening it backwards. Every single turn. I'll probably get 2 more turns in on this. Don't get too crazy on it, but it definitely helps to build up a decent sized head on this fly. It's just going to help to push water and make sure that it holds that nice form. And I'm going to go ahead and find the core by pulling those fibers down, 90-degree bend with my thread, wrap, 2, 3, tidy up by pulling everything back and just starting to create a little thread head. Because we got one more step, and that's to get those eyes on there. Loon Ergo Comb, greatest fly tying tool other than the Bic hollow pen. That's going to help to get all those fibers and make sure they're separate. So at this point, you could either whip finish and then go ahead and tie on or glue on some synthetic eyes. On mine, and people give me a lot of guff for this. On mine, I use Jungle Cock. I just think it looks really nice. I happen to have one of these around from when I was doing a lot of classic salmon fly. But I personally think that eyes on this pattern are more for the fisherman than for the fish. So if you want to put eyes on, go for it. If you don't, I really think this will fish just fine without them. So I'll do my side first, and then I'll go ahead and I'm going to tie on your side second, just so I can make sure that I get my side nice and lined up. So I'll take one of those eyes off the cape and secure it right on the side of that hook. And then I'll take another eye of the same size, measure it on my near side, set it on the far side, couple wraps, 1, 2, 3. You can still position it with those 3 wraps, and then you can go ahead and tighten up. Just make sure that's nice and clean. I'm going to look down the front of my fly and make sure it's nice and even. And once you're happy with your eye placement, you can go ahead and whip finish and super glue or hard as nails, whatever you like to finish your flies with, go for it. I generally hit them with super glue and then a couple coats of varnish. The super glue is really great because it's going to actually lock in everything and make it hard as a rock. I like the varnish because it looks pretty. It just makes it for a nice little shiny bead at the front of that fly. But whip finish, and there you have it. The Looks Better Wet 2.0. This one's in a light blue and white with those jungle fowl eyes. The cool thing about this pattern is, as you can see, it's just really bucktail, some of those synthetic brushes, a little bit of flash, and hackle. So the color possibilities are endless. Mess around with it. I would love to see your creations. Share them with us. Have a good one.
Right.